were expressions of fear.
Expressions of anxiety.
And this is something that we should not be feeling in terms of,
It's very natural to feel.
but we should have hope in our community and the safety of this place as well, alongside with the services that are provided to us in this country. So this is
One thing I want you
to emphasize about why this meeting is held, and hopefully we can just try and allay any
fears that people may have.
going forward. So just a little background for our guests who are here. This centre
It's the first mosque in Spelthorne.
was established in 2012, very inclusive and diverse community, and it
Works actively with other faiths.
in local charitable initiatives. We have a high number of children, youth and women who
Attend faith classes here and other services that are provided here. And I've just encapsulated very
quickly here some of
the
the
concerns of some,
like the case of
that they kind of relate to us.
people are feeling
Very, very vulnerable.
there's still risk of being physically attacked, abused.
As you came in here, I'm sure you felt it as well.
We did our best to get a central location, but 6 years ago, 7 years ago, which is the best that we could muster. And we thought the location is quite isolated. The children here, the women and the elderly are particularly vulnerable in the centre. They feel that and they express that to us.
That we've heard of in Stanwell within walking distance. So this is something that they've relayed to us here. We've had experiences over the years that have been quite negative, and if I'm really honest, the response was quite limited. This is something as I walked in here today, as I came out of work, people asked me to remind, oh, tell the police this and tell the police that. And in as much as they'd like to do that themselves, and they have done, I think when it comes from a collective, it's really important that these are taken on board. So last Ramadan, so every year the Muslims observe the month of Ramadan, and there were some tyres that were slashed outside of our mosque. Some windows were smashed, and cars were keyed along the side of it. It was reported to 101. We had a donation box that was stolen. Thankfully, through CCTV, we claimed that, and the police were actually very quick in their response. On a regular basis, we get verbal abuse after the Friday prayers, and in 2017, we had quite a big incident of trespassing and vandalism to our property. So it's just something that people have kind of reminded me about. I was here, I've been witness to a lot of these things, and this is the overriding sentiment that the Muslims feel here in this community, that there's a kind of a double victimization that's happening here. That sometimes, unless some major event happens, our suffering is not enough. And in as much as we can talk about what's happening in the news, the vilification of the Muslims generally, there seems to be a selective victimization that seems to be happening. I'm not saying that's the case. It's the sentiment. This is simply my relaying of the messages that I receive. I don't believe that to be the case all the time. There are certain things that we can talk about later, but this is simply my reiterating of what I've received. So that's all I'm saying here. We can ask the public about what they feel as well later. So the idea, guys, here today is first, it's a quick introduction of what we do here, and you guys all know this is more for our guests who've come here. And then I'd like the police, we have the borough commander here, Maxine, who will take over and just talk about what the police will be providing us in their way of support and their sentiments on what has happened, and maybe something that maybe Paul Smith, representation from the safety community team in the borough of Spelthorne, he is here as well, talk about that. So I'll just move on to, just very briefly, just for our guests here to understand kind of our most vulnerable members of our community that are here. So I mentioned the children's activities that take place here. I've put the times up there just for information so that people are aware. And if any of our teachers are here, if they can remind me if I've forgotten any of the times, please let me know, because this will be forwarded on to the police just for their information. So we have regular children's classes taking place here. We have an after-school faith class, Monday to Friday, 5 to 7. We have a weekend faith class, madrasa, that takes place on a Saturday or Sunday, 10:30 to 12:30. We have martial arts classes here, And we also have language classes that take place on a Thursday. This centre is very, very active. It's used every single day of the week. We have the 5 daily prayers, which you know about, and the height of that, or the most pivotal time for us, is the Friday prayer between 12 and 2 o'clock, which you're also aware of. We also have regular women's classes here on the Mondays, 10 till 11:30, and the Thursday, 10 till 12. And then we also have elderly activities. So we have a weekly walk that takes place on a Wednesday, 10 o'clock in the morning, and an elders tea club that we have on a Sunday evening about 5 o'clock. I've just summarised that up just so that we have a quick overview of the kind of activities that we have for our, what I would term, vulnerable people, our young children, our women, and our elderly people that come here and frequent this centre. So you may be asking yourself, well, what has the mosque done? What actions have we taken? So we work very closely with an organisation called Faith Associates. They're an organisation that basically have provided Muslim organisations, Muslim mosques, madrasas, institutions, a framework for safeguarding. So they've got a very, very big, elaborate, 56-page PDF, and it's their safety and security guide, which we've basically followed to a T. So we reviewed all our emergency exits, fire extinguishers, flood lighting for the external areas. All our teaching staff, imams and instructors are in regular communication about anything that may take place here, may happen here. Our intruder alarms are regularly checked, operational. We have 16 cameras here. It's a very small area, but we've done that for a reason in terms of our CCTV surveillance, covering off the main entry point. So we've now, as of what has happened recently, taken an action, and this is just again to reiterate to some of our concerned parents who are here, some extra measures. So with our faith classes, we now lock the doors. So when the children come in, say at 5 o'clock, maybe 10 minutes after that, we have locked the doors from the inside just for safety, and we requested parents to drop off their children in a timely fashion. So if there's any children that are outside with their parents, they call into our administrator, who I'd like to have here. Umar, if you can just come to the front, please. Umar does an awful lot for us, and he actually knows more about the logistics of what happens during the class times as well. So I might ask Umar to just talk a little bit about that. The opening and closing of the mosque is a really tight time for us, because sometimes when you come at the end of the day, people very quickly want to rush out in the evening prayer. And we have to ensure that there's at least a few people. Given the isolated location, we have at least 2 people waiting in the car. One's locking up, the other person's just waiting, making sure everyone's, everything's is done okay. The back entrances are all locked up, and that type of thing. So these are the measures that we've taken so far. Safe parking. So alongside his administrative job, Omar also does parking marshalling. And this is something now to iterate to our community to understand, is that your cooperation is needed. So where the car park is full, you must understand the signs and move on, continue to move on. Yeah. So it's really important that we have not only cooperation from the police and other services from the community, from the council, but ourselves taking responsibility for our own actions and understanding where we can prevent a lot of things and be safe in the current climate. One thing I think we're all guilty of, and I say this, speaking to myself first, is that whenever there's a threat, a perceived threat, some kind of abuse, generally we brush it under the carpet. There's a tendency, me and Nigel were just speaking about this, that people are sometimes not proud, but they feel a sense of it not being worth their, not worth reporting things. I don't know, maybe you guys can talk about that later, but we've told the congregation, if you come here on a Friday afternoon and you see 200 people here, you will find that everyone has a problem, they experience things, threats, abuse, things happen to them, but there's a tendency not to report it. But we've made it emphatic and made very, very clear to the congregation that anything, any threat, any abuse, anything that you perceive should be reported. And this is, again, I'm speaking to the community here, just to relay that information. It's really, really important that we do that. so that the police can help us and the authorities can help us. So this is just a little thing that we mentioned on the Friday prayer. 999 obviously for emergencies, 101 if there's a non-emergency, and we are working closely, as you can see, with the police and the fire services for that. So really now the follow-up, as was suggested by some of our members of the community, was that we should work with the police on a long-term security plan and crisis drilling. Given what had happened in New Zealand and has happened in different faith organisations around the world, I think it's important that we work on a plan with the police of what's effective, what type of thing we should do, what should we be doing at a time of crisis. If we're ever in a situation where there's a threat upon us, be it physical or otherwise, what steps should we take to confront that? And we'd like just some support from the council in terms of what assurances they can provide us that our community is safe, and what actions perhaps they're taking to help us. So this is just kind of the actions that we have taken, and hopefully some follow-up things that we can work with the police on. This is a suggestion, again, this is just a suggestion, that in the immediate 10 days, 14 days, at this heightened time of alert, if you like, people are feeling very, very vulnerable, was a proposed support help coverage. These are the hours, and again I can forward this on to the police and we can discuss this later, but it was just this tentative time where it's very acutely, it's a very critical time for us, and we feel that anxiety, we feel that fear. What can be done to help us? And this was a suggestion of coverage, perhaps of extra patrols or support or police presence, quite simply, that would help us in the next couple of weeks, because it's a very, very tentative time for the Muslim community, and this is just something that was suggested in terms of covering the core hours of the vulnerable people that frequent the centre. So that was really all I had to say on that. I'll open up for questions in a minute, but any questions specifically on the slides that I've shown from anyone? Okay. So I would like now to just hand over to Maxine, if you will, Maxine, just to talk to us a little bit about it.
Thanks for inviting us here tonight. It's an honour to come along and speak to you. We've done quite a lot of work already to try and make the community safer. So straight away, after the incident the weekend, we've put in extra patrols. So we already have 2 extra cars, double crewed, working in the Stanwell area, and including this area, and this particular venue, they'll be patrolling this, and they start an early car and a late car. We've also had 3 visits today from 2 PCSOs. They've been in and out quite often. If you check your cameras, they've been wandering about trying to find people to speak to, but and run back out. I think they found someone to speak to today this afternoon. I think that's what something this afternoon. But yeah, they've been in and out. And I know you've got close links already with Adam, one of my NSOs, and he'll be back in and coming back in and out over the next few days. So you will also have a dedicated officer here during prayers on Friday. So it will be Chris Springett, who's my other NSO. He will be here at prayers around in the area, in the foyer, just while the prayers are taking place. He'll be here. But just to let you know as well, holistically we're doing so much more to make it easier to report hate crime. So there is there's been an app that we created, which you can download onto your phone. So you don't actually need to pick up the phone 101. If something's happening to you there and then, and you can't pick up the phone, you can't ring 999, because of course that would always be the best thing. You can report online through the app, which is quite easy. So maybe it'll take away that little bit of apprehension of picking up the phone, reporting. Can you not hear me? Am I a bit quiet? Sorry. Don't normally have that problem. Oh, is it? Okay. Let me clip it on there. So normally what would happen is that you would have that apprehension about, should I report this? And when you're waiting on 101, you might actually feel that, like you say, it's not worthy, I'm not going to do this. But if it's an app and it's immediate, you're more likely to report it to us. Not only does that make it better for you because you've reported the crime, but it tells us what's really going on out there, because if you don't tell us what's happening, we don't know. We can't second guess. We can't put things in place to help any communities if we don't know what's happening. And I'd be really saddened to know that people here sitting in this congregation today have been affected by hate crime and haven't had the ability to be able to report and tell us what's going on, and we don't know about it, because we treat hate crime as a key priority in the area. It's a key priority for our force, and we try to turn around any hate crime within 28 days. So you will know if we found a suspect, you will know if we're investigating that crime, you will know what's happening. And within 28 days, we try to make sure that we've done that for you. So that's the importance of it. So I hope that that gives you some reassurance about how important we take all of these measures and how we're trying to create a safer community for you. A lot of the leaflets we've also brought in about the UK Protect Faith Community Advice. I know you talked about how to deal with crisis, how to deal with an emergency situation. On here, it tells you how to deal with emergency situations. There's also a government website link which I can provide you with, which is a training app on it, and you can refer to it and it tells you exactly what to do in particular. It gives you scenarios and tells you how to work through those scenarios, so that you have some idea how it would work within this area and how you could keep yourself safe. I absolutely believe that's a great idea, locking the doors when the children, because it just stops anybody just wandering in who don't need to be in here. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. But please just don't stop doing what you normally do, because why let anybody win? Because you are the community, and what you do in your community is your business and your life. So please don't stop doing it, and we will do our best to make you safe. I'm just going to hand over now to my superintendent, Andy Rundle, because I'm sure he'll like to say something. And he has got a good portfolio, because he actually looks after the Prevent Vice within the Northern Borough. So I'll hand you over. Did I drop that?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invite and the opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm Andrew Rundle. I'm the Operations Superintendent for North Surrey, so I'm responsible for response policing and neighbourhood policing within the borough, within the division of North Surrey. Just want to reiterate really what Max has said. You are key members of our community. Every community should value difference. Difference in faith, in worldview, in nationality, in life experience. And I'm pleased to say that North Surrey as a division is a diverse community. And it's a community that actually gets on extraordinarily well. The awful events in New Zealand and then the incident closer to home in Stanwell absolutely create a fear of crime. And I'm really saddened to hear that so many of you have been impacted quite understandably by this. And some members of this congregation are even considering whether or not this is a safe venue, whether or not it's appropriate to use this building. Absolutely, of course it is. So first of all, can I give you some reassurance about the incident in Stanwell? So you will have read a lot of coverage in the newspapers, no doubt. Prior to coming to the meeting tonight, I did speak with the senior investigating officer who is leading the investigation within Counter-Terrorism Policing South East. So the initial response to that incident was from officers from our team, from Max and my team, responding to reports of a male in the street, acting aggressively, threatening people, and frankly, chanting and shouting phrases, terminology that can only be associated with extreme right-wing views, so racist views. I'm pleased to say that officers located him quickly, arrested him quickly, and equally importantly, identified concerns which were flagged to our colleagues in counter-terrorism policing. So over the last few days, we've been working with Counter-Terrorism Policing South East to assist colleagues there in leading that investigation. And that is not only a priority for my force, but it's a priority for the region in terms of counter-terrorism policing. So I just wanted to reassure you that we treat crimes of this nature as an absolute priority for us. And I wanted to reassure you that we're doing everything we can to also prevent incidents like this occurring in the first place. So Max has already set out some of the plans we've got in place for this particular establishment. My expectation is that you will know your local neighbourhood policing team well. And I know from being based here for over a year that the local policing team are regular visitors here. We will be maintaining and increasing that visibility over the coming weeks. We'd like to build an even closer relationship with you all, my plea is, if you are victims of crime and it is motivated by religion, ethnicity, if we think it's inspired by hate, please, please, please report it. It doesn't matter how minor, how trivial. It might be that you feel that you can shrug it off. We need to understand a full picture of crime inspired by hate so that I can put appropriate resources behind it. Now, as a division, we've actually seen a significant improvement in the percentage of crime, of hate crime, that we detect. So that's the number of people we bring to justice for hate crime. And I'm pleased to say that North Surrey currently is the top performing division in Surrey Police in terms of detecting hate crime. It's one of our 3 priorities: hate crime, residential burglary, and domestic abuse. So it's one of the priorities for my officers. And there is nothing more important. Every morning, any reported hate crime is discussed in our senior management meeting with all of our operational leaders to make sure there are appropriate resources and the investigation is being progressed. So if you are a victim of hate crime, please, please, please report it. So over the coming weeks, we're going to be increasing our policing presence. You will have no doubt been offered a visit by our specialist crime prevention officer. And again, in light of recent events, I'll be discussing with Max that we re-offer that service to you. We can get a specialist officer down here to look at the physical layout of the site, and they can make recommendations for modifications to the centre. We will be having officers here at key times, and we can discuss exactly when would have the most impact, positive impact for you. We can place a marker on this address on our police systems, which mean that in the event of a call from this establishment asking for police assistance, the radio operators in our control room immediately know of the significance of this venue. This is a really important cultural and community site for us. We are proud of the fact that we have such a vibrant, well-attended mosque on our borough in Spelthorne. For me, that's really important, and it's an indicator of the health of the overall community. Okay, so there's some of the things we can do over coming weeks. My response officers already have been tasked to improve their visibility and passing patrols. My neighbourhood teams can invest more time physically here. So working with you and our key partners within Spelthorne Borough Council, we will make sure that you feel and get the support that you need. In the event of any issue, Max, as the borough commander, is the individual that you would escalate that to. Okay? And we will make sure that we address any concerns. Wider, at the moment in Surrey, we're doing a lot of work under the government contest strategy, which is our counter-terrorism national initiative, particularly under Prevent, to identify people in our communities who hold, for example, extreme right-wing views or extreme left-wing views, or have an ideology, a belief, a worldview, which might mean that they're vulnerable to radicalisation, they're vulnerable to being exploited, and potentially groomed to commit acts of crime, or worst case scenario, terrorism. So we're working really hard to identify those individuals who are vulnerable to radicalisation, and working with Surrey County Council, our local borough councils, obviously police and counter-terrorism policing, to give those individuals the right level of support to deconflict those views before they commit crime. And for me, prevention and promoting a message of tolerance, of understanding, is absolutely fundamental. And I know that's a fundamental tenet of your faith and worldview. So we'll be working with you, continuing to work with you to make sure that you get the support that you need. I want to reassure you that my resources are very aware of this site, and we are obviously committed to providing you ongoing support, regardless of recent events. That's a long-term commitment that we would like to make to this particular site. So we're here to answer any questions. I know that Paul is keen to say a few words on behalf of the local partnership in Spelthorne Borough Council, but if anyone has any questions of Max and I, we're happy to take questions, I guess, once Paul's had an opportunity to speak. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Paul Smith from Spelthorne Borough Council. You can tell I'm not a policeman, I don't have the kit, I don't have uniform, I don't go out on patrol. But what I do, I work with the police quite closely. This Thursday, for instance, we've got a big meeting with the police, fire brigade, social services, There's the prison governor from Bronzefield, and we discuss areas of local concern and try and problem solve and move forward. I look at my poor man here, Omar, who I've met quite a few times. I think dealing with parking is a good example of where we have worked together, not against each other, to improve things. We've stood there and you've taught me some languages. Often some of the council staff who wear uniform, they can come out and they've helped with alleviating some parking. I know they went and towed a vehicle away that was parked in the central reservation. And I pick up from Nisar's bit, sometimes it's some of the congregation here needs to help as well. And if we work together instead of against each other, we can certainly improve things. And I would reflect on Maxine's view. If you people are unhappy with us, I feel we've probably not done our job properly. But we all need to work together. In general terms, this is a lovely borough. This is a nice place to live. In general terms, people get on well. And the reason why these dreadful events get so well publicised, because they're rare in this country. Elsewhere in the world, it's almost common practice and people aren't shocked by them. But we're shocked because this is rare. I've got children, I've got grandchildren. I want to make a good job here. So I know time is an issue. I know prayers are at 8, I understand. And if we're not careful, there won't be enough time for questions and answers. But all I would say, we work very well with police and other people. We've got lots of resources within the council we can help. And I think our view from the council is a bit more long-term problem solving. The police are the experts on dealing with the immediate crises. And then we all work together to help you and help the community of Spelthorne. So Nissa, I think rather than me talk as third, it's probably better if you talk and tell us what your concerns are and see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andy. Maxine. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. So this is just now our time, guys. Q&A. Are there any questions for our guests who are here today to help us? Anything at all?
I would say that it's sort of a future-proofing. As you were saying that you will speak to your colleagues and you will put this venue as like sort of a emergency venue, or not emergency, like there would be a market that would be there is an importance of this. Considering the events in New Zealand, thanks God that in this country we don't have guns, or we have guns but they're very limited. But in that case, can we have, not just our community, all the communities across, sort of a alarm system that just push there, police will know that something is happening here, and this is like possibly like a technology related question, but you might have like at the heat of the moment, who knows who will remember that 911 we have to call or 999 we have to call. But yes, pressing the alarm will do something.
Like a panic button.
Yeah,
Like a panic button.
you're talking about a system that would have to be put in by yourselves, and you could have panic strips or panic buttons put in as part of that. That's something our design out crime officer could come and advise you on, and we do have recommended companies that we would use for that. And some of those systems will go straight through to the police control room and alert us that you pushed a panic button.
The Home Office in the past has had funding specifically for religious institutions for security, and we did explore that on a few occasions in the past. The issue that we had was that a lot of the crime, because I think when you apply for these things, you have to link, it has to be specifically linked to hate crime. And when we were, obviously we're only aware of what we were aware of, and a number of the issues that Sarah talked about were kind of tyre slashing, this type of thing, which couldn't necessarily be linked back to a hate crime. So when we at that point applied for this type of funding, we weren't really, we told it wouldn't really be possible. So that was a condition.
Okay.
Now with this incident having happened, and you're probably aware of many others, is that something we can take forward from,
Yes.
from this evening?
So what I would suggest, so that funding, so we circulated through our force chaplain to all faith groups at the end of last year, the Home Office funding available for places of worship. I would suggest that we collectively revisit your application. So possibly through one of Max's sergeants, that we arrange a get-together and we can look at your application and we can provide you some additional material. So we have a hate crime profile, a product that looks at hate crime in the borough. So we can look at some of our data and some of our systems, provide some of that analytical product to assist you in that application. So I see that very much as a joint piece of work that we can do, I think, quite quickly.
Yeah, and also some of the hate crime that maybe you put down as the tyre slashing, you might have already had a hate crime flag on our system, but you didn't know that because under freedom of information you could have applied for some of that information, but because of the priority in making sure that this location is safe, we can work with you and we can show you where those flags are. So you probably could use more of those crimes in your profiling because they would have had a hate crime flag on them. Yeah.
This app you mentioned earlier about reporting crime, that's not an emergency reporting media, is it?
No, 999 is always going to be your first.
What's the
app is
outcome of
for
doing that?
for the app.
Yeah.
So it will go through and be recorded and it will be investigated as it would normally, but you're not going to get an urgent response. Someone's not going to come out straight away to you there and then.
It's not the same as doing 101 either, is it?
It would be the same as 101. Yeah, because the crime would go through, and when the crimes go through to the contact centre, they get graded on a response, and then the response is graded on how urgent we believe the crime is going. And hate crime's always going to be up the list a little further than any other crime, especially if there's any kind of injury or threat. So if you filled in the app and the crime went through, it would go through just as normal and it would be graded and sent out to an officer to deal.
There'd be some kind of feedback on it or response.
Yeah, you would get, when you report any crime, as always, we have to comply with the victim code, which means that we have to contact you within a certain period of time, and we have to update you with your crime and any exceptional circumstances within that crime, we have to give you the details.
Just one thing that came out actually during the initial introduction was, what should you do? What is the prevailing advice in the event of an incident here? Now, as part of our safety visit here, we can give some specific advice around designing out crime at this venue, but the generic advice is run, hide, tell. So the best way to protect individuals is to run away from the threat, then hide, preferably quietly, barricade yourself in, and then at that point contact emergency services. But I would just like to draw attention really to one of our leaflets, which is a product produced by the Home Office aimed at faith communities, and this will be left for the congregation to view in your own time, but I would urge you to look at that as a product, and there are some website addresses as well to give particular advice to the faith community. That is a really good resource and certainly worthy of a read.
Sorry, I did join late. But I just wanted to ask, is there going to be an increase in both education, awareness, both locally and nationally, for right-wing extremism? Are there measures being taken? Because I feel if it was a left-wing, if these attacks of left-wings were increasing and have increased in the past, all of a sudden there is a lot more education, both in schools at a lower level, for starting at primary level. I just want to know what action has been taken for actually the very big increase in right-wing extremism.
Okay, so with Brexit, unfortunately, I hate to mention Brexit tonight, but that is an issue. And of course, awful incidents on the world stage, and then closer to home, we are seeing a growth in extreme right-wing views and, interestingly, extreme left-wing ideology. Whenever there is a crisis on the world stage, economic hardship, unfortunately, instead of pulling us all closer together, which is my view, that's what should be happening, sometimes it pulls people apart, often driven by ignorance, lack of understanding, xenophobia, sometimes individuals who are deliberately trying to stir up racial hatred. So there's been a considerable amount of work under the Prevent agenda, driven by the Home Office under the Contest strategy. Now, Surrey has done a lot of work in terms of education in schools, in terms of identifying people, sometimes at a very young age, and I mean primary school children who are demonstrating extreme views. maybe hate terminology, often influenced by what goes on within the home. They are then subject to safeguarding referrals for a multi-agency safeguarding hub, and ultimately we have a channel panel, which are for people who are of concern, who've been identified with these views. They get intensive multi-agency support and work, utilising a Home Office specialist intervention provider as well, to try and deconstruct that ideology and challenge that ideology, and we will work with those individuals as long as it takes to address the root cause of their behaviour.
But
And-
as I understand, Prevent so far has been primarily focused on left-wing extremism. It's all you hear about, actually. I've got children in primary school, so I know what Prevent is focused towards at the primary level. I want to know, is it being just as equal now, and is there a bigger push towards right-wing?
I would say from a Surrey perspective, so I sit on the Prevent Executive Group. I have officers that I am responsible for who attend the channel panel and actually manage Prevent cases across the county. I would actually say that as a county, we're probably investing more in extreme right-wing than extreme left-wing. Absolutely. Sadly, extreme right-wing views are not new. So we've had National Front, we've had Combat 18 and abhorrent groups like that. What's changing in recent years is we're seeing an emergence of groups like Britain First. So rebadged and with a glossy slick website and an appropriate logo, and they're marketed to appeal to the younger generation.
Yeah.
So we're working really closely with education, with health, with probation, with the community mental health team, with all of our partners in Surrey County Council to try and get messages particularly focused at young people, to try and challenge this sometimes quite alluring but fundamentally wrong worldview. So it is definitely the focus in Surrey, definitely.
We have done, with our youth officer, she's gone out to all of the Spelfield schools and done a hate crime input, which is just about, you know, what is hate crime, what you shouldn't say, what's acceptable, why are you saying this kind of thing, you know. And there is also going to be some plays that have been put on, and I know that we've done a lot of work with the your juvenile workshops that we do at Junior Citizen. So we do quite a lot of work with the Junior Citizen as well, and it's always on the
I
agenda.
think there's more can be done. I think sort of picking up on your point, and then it's ever a moving feast, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just feel like if it was, you know,
The press only like it
don't
one
actually-
direction, don't they?
exactly,
They've
yeah,
got
they don't help.
lot to blame for, and I think sometimes it's a bit unfair.
yeah,
We can never do enough.
yeah, no. of
And
course.
ultimately, you know, that's the thing. We need to all collectively strive, and we need your concerns. If you identify somebody within your community that's beginning to display behaviour of concern, we need that information. We need that referral. I know it's a trite line, but it's not the police that defeat people with hate in their hearts or terrorists. It's communities that tell the police about the issue so we can act on it. So please, keep telling us of any concerns.
There's 2 more minutes left, and then we'll end it there. Any more questions?
What about if we see things on social media, for example? If you see something hateful on social media, do we report to you?
Yes.
It's a difficult one. You do need to report to us if you've seen it, and especially if it's directed at people in particular. But also, the social media sites have got their own role to play in that as well. And slowly but surely, things like Facebook and Twitter are starting to understand they need to take stuff down really quickly. But yeah, it is difficult for us to investigate some of those crimes because a lot of those sites sit in other countries, and we do struggle with getting information. But if you know who's putting that up, and if it's directed at you, it's a hate crime, you do need to report it to us, let us know.
Just a quick question. First of all, it was very satisfactory to hear, you know, what's being done for the safety of the centre. But I'm just wondering what's being done for the overall safeguarding of the public places. You know, so my missus, for example, wouldn't let me go to the Tesco's after that incident. So if you're going to the high street and if you're going to the Tesco's,
Waitrose is much nicer.
Got your salary then.
On our shop in Tesco.
You shouldn't change your behaviour.
No. And actually, we have put extra patrols in. And if you think about what happened, it really was, you know, a wild card. It's not the kind of behaviour that we would see every day in this country. As been said before, you know, just carry on doing what you do. And, you know, we're doing our best to put extra patrols out there to make you feel safer. Because actually, you don't need to make it safer because it's safe out there. We live in the safest county. And so actually, just making you feel safe, we're putting extra people out there so you can see how visible it is.
There's no other questions, guys. I think we end it here. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I feel quite satisfied personally as a trustee here. We have a due responsibility to our community to allay any fears, any concerns that they have. Thank you for your time, and please, guys, take some of the literature that's here. We posted outside in the main area, the foyer as you come in. Please read the things. Please take it home, take it to heart. Use the advice that's been given. Don't just sit there, complain to me or to other people, sending me messages. It doesn't help. Send that message to the people that can really make a difference, okay? If they are here.
Just a quick, you know, the Honourable Policeman, she was mentioning the app.
Yes.
What is that app called?
Yes, so keep it there.
No, that's fine.
Take time. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's here. The app will be there. You'll see it, guys. Pick it up.
So will we see you again, like a follow-up?
We would be happy to come back. Very much so.
Before Ramadan?
Yes.
Just a quick question. We'll take the last question.
We all know Ramadan's coming up and there'll be extended hours at the mosque here late into the night. Is there any possibility of having extra?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We normally always do put extra patrols in anyway. You probably just don't see us. So, but we will be putting extra visible patrols and helping out. Yeah, we're just gonna we'll liaise and
Sure.
make
We'll
sure
work
we've
together.
got all the right dates and times.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Would you like me to leave my email? And then
Yes,
if
please,
you can
yeah,
email me,
of course.
what I'll do is I'll send you across all that other information.